Sometime last year, I got my hands on this used 20-year-old VTL 2.5 tube preamp. Now, I've been always curious about VTL brand since I've heard many good things about them. Now, with all the advancement in technology, I was expecting this vintage VTL tube preamp to be outclassed easily by modern gear. Surely, come on, a modern Schiit Freya tube preamp should be able to run circles around this dinosaur, right? Did it? Not really. In fact, one can argue this VTL sounds better depending what you are looking for. So then, one question I had was, if this VTL preamp that should be in the museum sounded this good, I wonder how much better their current version VTL 2.5i preamp would sound. Surely it must be out of this world. So to satisfy my curiosity, I checked with all my connections to see if I can get my hands on the latest model. I got lucky, and you can imagine my excitement. Yes, my expectation for this new preamp were through the roof. 20 years of improvement, what will it give me? Once I power up the new VTL preamp, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I see what they have done. And I should have expected that. Today, my audio buddies, let me share with you another chapter of my audio journey. Let's talk about the old versus the new VTL TL2.5i Tube preamp. Now, as with most of my video, I'm not getting paid a penny, have no affiliated links, no expectations of keeping this preamp after the video. So VTL probably does not even know I'm making this video. Thinking about this, why do I have to mention this in all my videos? You know, it's not as if my assessment would change even if I'm getting paid. My rule has always been, if I don't like it, I'll just not review it and send it back. I will, however, post a short summary on my Patreon account on why I've decided not to review something. This new VTL 2.5i preamp was introduced in 2016 and it is priced around $3,000. The version I got has a phono stage, so it's around $5,000 USD. The unit has 6 RCA input and 2 RCA output. The VTL TL 2.5i is the entry-level model. I believe their specialty is tubes because I noticed all their products use tubes. They also make tube integrated amps, phonos, and power amps. Both the new and old preamp both use two 12AU7 tubes. The difference is that the new one uses two 12AT7 while the old one uses 6350 tubes. Now, I have to say the build quality of the newer model is way better. It is more sturdy and the thicker metal has a bit of texture, making it feel more premium. Wow, bloody hell, at $3,000 it better be. Now, not sure if the remote I got is the stock remote, but man, it does feel a bit cheap. Now, according to the website, all the products are manufactured in the USA. So let me start with a story to highlight the differences between the old and the new. One night, I got an email from my audio buddy, Mr. Kanta, who just finished listening to the old preamp. He was really happy and said, man, with stock tubes, it sounded so good, so sweet, and has great instrument separation. He then said, by changing to Holland Newell stock Rogers tube, it got better. Finally, he went all out and put some crazy expensive 12AU7 Telefunken tubes, and he said even better. So he was feeling really good because he was the one who bought this preamp at a good price. And even factoring in the price of the tubes, he said, man, it was worth it. It is as if he has won the lottery ticket. But then he put in the new VTL 2.5i and said, darn, even with stock tubes, it just destroyed my old VTL 2.5. Darker background, better separation, better layering. The center image is stronger. I can imagine the singer appearing much easier. And yeah, this is for stock tubes. What the hell? So when I first plugged in the older VTL 2.5, the first thing I noticed was the sweet mid-range. And that was game over for me. It's been a while since I have last listened to a sweet presentation. Sweet, defined as a lack of aggressiveness, soft, rounded edges, buttery smooth top end, and overall pleasant to my ears. Now, I know some of you are under the impression that tubes automatically equals sweet and smooth. But I tell you, man, today, most tube amps I listen to have a sharpness that with the wrong pairing can easily send you running out of the room. So when I came across a sweetness like this, I was like, oh my gosh, man, where have you been? For those of you who follow me, you know, I like gear that has color. And this older VTL, man, is seasoned with MSG, warm and colored. I love it. A bit on the slow side, but whatever. Now, obviously, I was hoping the newer model would be a turbocharged version of this older preamp. But when I first powered it up, it took me like a few seconds to realize, man, this new 2.5, yep, has the modern sound. Well, the good part is it still has a hint of sweetness. Nowhere near the sweetness of the older preamp, but objectively speaking, it beats the older 2.5 in every other category. So, how does the new VTL sound? I would say, overall, it is neutral, non-veiled, sparkling top end that can resolve all the micro details you need. No problem using the maximum potential of any modern high-res tweeters. The mid-range, yeah, is clear, has a good body, and bass that is somewhat linear. I find there's a slight bump in the upper mid bass. Now the amp has two settings inside, low gain and normal gain. You get more dynamics with normal gain, but it's not as quiet. For a tube preamp, it is pretty dynamic. Although neutral, absolutely not thin sounding. Speed is fast, the bass is well controlled, and it has an airy soundstage. Instrument separation is its strong point thanks to its darker backgrounds. Yeah, and the soundstage, yeah, has good layering. I think, you know what? The comparison between these two VTL preamps is in line with where the audio industry has been heading for the last decade, right? More transparency, more clarity, sharper, faster, better bass control, better layering, better instrument separation, and so forth. Now, I can understand why though, because when you listen to a more modern system, now regardless of budget, that sense of realism is definitely better. So, for someone like me, which one would I choose? You know, I'm a really sucker for sweet mid-range because, you know, I listen mostly to music with a lot of vocals. But if you ever experience a fantastic soundstage, it is hard to go back. So given the fact I'm greedy, I don't care if I have to starve to save up, I want both. I'm more towards the newer sound, but I don't think the newer, more modern sound is necessarily better. A question of taste. A bit like vinyl and high-res, right? Vinyl might not have the resolution of high-res music, but it is equally as enjoyable, if not more. You know, I wish VTL would build an anniversary version with this sweet sound again. Call it like the extra honey version, you know, guaranteed to melt your heart or your money back. You know, as you know, I'm also getting an amp built and it will have the modern sound. But one day, I would love to build an amp with this more vintage sweet sound. No, who knows, maybe one day. Now put in the comments which kind of sound you like more. So let's start with the negatives. Now in the interest of transparency, I will share with you everyone's experience. I did let Mr. Jazz and Mr. Quad try it. Mr. Quad told me, you know what, Thomas, every single tube preamp I borrow from you, it doesn't do anything for me. No, and you know what? I guess it's because he has electrostatic speakers and it's already really airy. So adding tube preamp does not enhance its soundstage. Mr. Jazz told me he did not find it wow, like Mr. Vintage and Mr. Cantor, but he also did not spend a lot of time with it. So he said, you know, he doesn't really have anything meaningful to contribute to this video. Okay, that's about it. So let's move on to the positives. So let me try to explain what is so special about the new VTL 2.5. If you think about it, everything I just said about how the VTL sound, big deal. You can basically copy and paste it to a Schiit Freya tube preamp review, right? Good separation, relatively neutral, airy soundstage, detail, blah, blah, blah. You know, I just described the Freya too. So why don't I just go get a Schiit Freya instead and save myself $2,000? To answer this question, I had an hour-long meeting with my audio buddies, Mr. Vintage and Mr. Cantor. Oh, by the way, man, my wife was actually next to me at the time, and she was like rolling her eyes. And whenever she hears me talk with my friends on the phone, she's like, "What's wrong with you, Thomas, man?" Anyways, she fell asleep. In the interest of time, let me just focus on why Mr. Vintage likes the VTL preamp. To understand the why, I need to touch on what does Mr. Vintage looks for when setting up a system. There are three things. Number one, the system has to be neutral and sounds natural. Number two, the scale and sizing must be correct. Number three, dark background. Number one, right? Neutral and natural sounding. What does it mean? It means that a guitar with a nylon string should not sound like a guitar with metal string. See, Mr. Vintage plays musical instruments so he can tell the difference. Number two, the sizing and scale must be correct, right? The singer size should not be like a giant. A flute cannot sound bigger than a piano. Drums in an orchestra, if placed usually they're at the back, right? So it should sound like it's coming from the back no matter how loud it plays. Okay, so does not sound like a big deal, right? It depends how picky you are. So let's talk about the $6,500 Audio Research LS25, for example. Now this preamp has a slightly forward presentation and will make you feel like you're sitting at the front row of the performance. Great, if you like that. And it's fantastic when you listen to music played by a small band. However, once you listen to orchestra music, you might then notice that forwardness might be too much of a good thing. For example, the drums in an orchestra might sound a bit forward. The flute is as pronounced as the piano. Sure, most people will not think about it, but if you're chasing after the correct sizing as much as someone like Mr. Vintage, then the VTL is better than the Audio Research LS25. Now this is the part, oh by the way, this is the part where my wife is like, what the hell is wrong with you people? Just listen to the music. If your goal is to create a live event as realistic as possible, correct scale and sizing are important. Now these two things I just mentioned, sounding natural and correct scale, you don't need high-end audio to achieve that. Mr. Vintage can achieve it with his current budget gear. The last one, dark background. Unfortunately, you will need high-end audio to achieve it. Who knows, maybe it has something to do with the power supply. Now, I remember getting an email one day from Mr. Vintage telling me, after listening to the new VTL preamp, he said he lost all appetite to listen to all his own preamp, namely the Audio Research LS2, the Rogue Audio Magnum, and even the older VTL. Nothing he has can achieve that dark background as good as this VTL can. Now, in my opinion, this is where high-end preamps like this VTL start pulling away from the entry preamps like Schiit Freya, for example. Now, as you know, I love the Schiit Freya. I have been recommending it, so no, I am not knocking on it, but rather I'm trying to make a point here. If you just listen casually, I tell you, man, the Schiit Freya and higher end preamp, not much of a big gap. Schiit Freya is good enough. The problem is when you start going into deep listening that pushes the limit of the system, for instance, like music like orchestra, then you hear a difference. When you have three instruments playing, not hard to tell those three instruments, but when you have 7 instruments all playing at the same time, that is when darker background makes the difference. It is easier to pick out all 7 instruments in the orchestra with a darker background. So if you're someone who listens to orchestra, this VTL should be on your short list. Now, of course, there are other strengths that justify its premium over the Freya, like the VTL is more refined. Heck, it's even more refined than the Audio Research LS25. Oh, by the way, you know Mr. Vintage recently has been saying no to some of the gear I asked him to help me check out, because he said, Thomas, man, after I listen to the better stuff, I need a few days of adjustment before I can go back to my own gear. This preamp, and in the email he jokingly said, he needed a few days to forget it so that he can start enjoying his own gear again. So let's wrap it up. Now I know $3,000 is a lot of money, but for us, given its performance level, made in the USA and uses dealer instead of direct sales, it is a bargain. Now as Mr. Kanta put it, if you like the Audio Research neutral sound, but can't afford it since like the cheapest one, the LS28, is like 7,500 USD, then VTL is something you should consider. For those of you who don't follow me, now I have experience with the Audio Research SPA, LS25, LS27, LS28, and Reference 40. And yeah, I agree. There is quite a bit of similarity to the Audio Research presentation. Now, one of the differences, Audio Research, if you like that sound, will grab your attention way more. Well, maybe the VTL 5.5, their higher end model, can do the same. I don't know. Now, what about VTL when compared to the Modwright LS100? Now, the LS100 is warmer and fatter sounding, spectacular sweep mid-range, while the VTL is faster, more neutral, and has a darker background. So your choice would depend on your taste. They do sell at dealers, so make sure you go audition it instead of buying it blindly. So in short, this new VTL preamp is, in my opinion, something you should be looking into if you're shopping for a modern, neutral sounding tube preamp with a hint of sweetness. Alright, I think that's it for me today, so I'll see you next time.
I never think, I never know, I'm stuck and left alone. I've been lost, I've been fine, my cause is not defined. Won't you kiss me, won't you play, won't you drive me, ain't no way I could deny you, I could stray. Won't you kiss me, ain't no way. Come and try me now, come and try me now. I was never I never